All right. First of all, thank you everyone for coming this morning. Call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is any public comments. Yes, sir.
Yes, hi, my name is John McDade.
Yes, sir.
I am here from Portsmouth, and I just wanted to comment on the agenda item on cameras that the Bristol Police Department have requested.
Yes, sir.
As you probably know, the citizens of Portsmouth spoke. The Town Council of Portsmouth rescinded their approval of a plan to put cameras on the bridge for reasons of privacy. And I know that our state senator, Jim Seveny, has spoken to folks here at the authority. And I just want to encourage you to think, to be thoughtful about any decision you make, because the people of Portsmouth spoke against this. And in our opinion, it would be unfortunate for the state to impose something on Portsmouth that the residents of Portsmouth and the Town Council of Portsmouth have spoken against. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Absolutely. Question. Now,
Yes.
Are you a representative or a council person or?
No, I'm just a
Just
citizen.
a citizen.
I'm just a citizen.
Well, if you feel like you want to speak during the item,
Yes.
when it's brought up, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Indicated he's going to arrive a little late, so when we get to that item, we'll wait.
Did you hear that?
Yes, I did. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move to the next item, which is the approval of the minutes of June 15th, 2022 meeting. Motion by Karen, second by Peter. Discussion, hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Next item on the agenda was the Bristol Police Department, but as the director said, we are going to move that until the chief arrives. Is everyone okay with that? Yeah. Great. Next item on the agenda is for discussion is retirement plan amendment and restatement.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Good morning. The prior plan document was effective January 1st of 2016. And over the years, the plan has been updated just via amendments. So all we're looking for is approval to officially update the plan itself. And with your approval on that, Doug will sign that. And again, it's mostly administrative. It's updates for mostly for IRS regulations over the years that have changed.
Questions of Jeff? Hearing none. Do I have a motion? So, motion by Darrell, second by Peter. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Next item on the agenda is routine inspection and load ratings of the Secana River Bridge, Evans Avenue Bridge task orders.
I'll take that.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
I'll
Eric.
take the next 7.
But nobody's coming, right?
So, Secana River Bridge and Evans Ave Bridge, which is one of the approach bridges to Secana on the Tiverton side, both are due for routine inspections this year. Coincidentally, they're also due for load ratings, which are done every 8 years. So we went out to ask for quotes from our on-call engineers to get prices for the inspections initially. Majeski and Masters came in with the lowest quote of $47,692. After reviewing them, we had decided that we would recommend moving forward with them for the inspection. So we also decided to say, well, coming off of the inspection is a natural time to do load rating. We did a similar thing on Jamestown Bridge last time around. So we asked them to provide a quote for the load rating on the bridge as well. So their quote on that is $87,777. We're recommending that we approve the task orders, both task orders for the inspections and the load ratings for Majeski and Masters. What was budgeted was a total of $190,000 for these, and we're at $136,000. Just so we're savings, the budget is $54,000. Our budget numbers, by the way, are based on prior task orders from last time around inspections and load ratings. So getting quotes has been proving to save us considerable amount of money. So I'd like to recommend approval.
Peter?
Just a quick question. I followed most of this, but I didn't see anywhere where Steer Engineering, the DVE, the work of the DVE is defined.
They probably are using them for evidence. Let's see. They have an inspector in there. If you look at the outside, under outside services.
Yes.
They're gonna use Steer for a part of the inspection. They have
Okay,
60 hours of
so
inspection.
they'll add a team member from Steer
Yeah,
to be part
yeah,
of
just
it.
supplementing the Steer, yeah.
Okay,
There was a line item in there for steering.
right. I just didn't know what role they were playing, but it makes sense that they add just a team member
Yeah.
to the process thing, yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, supporting local DVEs,
Good.
much.
Okay, so further questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to award the contract to Jeske and Masters? Motion by Peter, second by Darrell. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Next item is routine inspection and load rating of the Mount Hope Bridge.
Yep, I'll take that one as well. So same thing, Mount Hope Bridge came due for inspection again this year, and also coincidentally is due for a load rating update. We again asked for quotes from our on-calls. We received two quotes, one from Majeski and Masters and one from WSP. Majeski and Masters was lower at $204,435. We also, as part of the solicitation for quotes, had asked them to quote the load rating portion of this as well, and Majeski and Masters again was lower on the load rating for $154,502. So we'd like to recommend approval of both the task order for both of these services in total of $358,937, and the savings to budget is $142,000 in this case. So,
Questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to award the contract for routine inspection and load rating of the Mount Hope Bridge for the sum not to exceed $358,937 to Majeski and Masters? Motion by Peter, second by Karen. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you. Next item, routine inspection of the Newport Belt Bridge. You're up. Aaron?
yep, so yet another inspection. So we last inspected the main spans 2 years ago, so they're due. Newport Bridge, just as a note, we split it in half. We do the main spans 1 year, the approach spans the next year. Actually, it's done in the inverse as far as how it's reported. So last year we did the approach spans. We hold that piece of inspection until we do the main spans the following year. We do that because the bridge is so large, it makes it easier to schedule the work. WSP happened to do, by chance, the approach spans last year. We asked for quotes on this for the main span this year, and WSP came in lower on this particular quote. Their price was $259,200. We actually had 3 quotes on this one, and they were lower than Majeski and Masters in this case by about $20,000 or so, just under $20,000. This one is not due for a load rating update, so it's just an inspection. And what happens is when they finish the main spans, they'll actually report to Federal Highway with the approach span and the main span put into one package. So when we do the main span is when we actually report the inspection to Federal Highway. But we'd like to recommend moving forward with WSP on this task order for that total of $259,200, and the savings to budget on this, in this case, is $91,000.
Questions? Discussion. Do I have a motion to award? Motion by Darrell, second by Karen. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Perfect. Thank you. Next item is Federal Grant Support Service Task Orders.
Sure, so On this one, as you're aware, we've been going after federal funding for Mount Hope Bridge, and actually, more recently for a large project for Pell. And in the beginning, with the first grant application for RAISE, we solicited some services for grant assistance, and we've been working with AECOM. AECOM's been doing a great job, we feel, on the grant support. They've got an excellent grant writer on that team, so we decided to ask them to provide quotes for services to help us with the MPDG and the BIP opportunities that are out there right now. So they proposed $20,262 task order for some support, several support tasks on the MPDG grant opportunity. On the bridge improvement program, we're actually working with the state to do the grants, but we needed AECOM to prepare categorical exclusion documentation for both projects, because in the grant application, Jeff found that there's a section that actually asks specifically, you know, how ready is it as far as categorical exclusion versus other documentation. We decided it'd be best for us to move forward with the categorical exclusion documentation and get that ready ahead of time. When the projects go, it would need to be done anyways, so it made sense. So they submitted a task order for $36,909 to prepare the documentation of both projects. We'd like to recommend approving both of these task orders.
Questions?
Yeah. Eric, I noticed
Yeah.
on the schedule, it talks about May submittals. You take a look at that proposal. Everything was in May of this year.
Which,
Page 3 of the task order. Task order 4, page 3.
yeah, that, yeah.
So you're correct, and that was because of the timing associated with the RAISE grant. We had less than 30 days notice to submit, so we went out and.
This was MPDG.
What's that?
This was for MPDG, the mega grant.
So the mega grant,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Yep.
So we did not have the time to go to the board to get approval. So we sat with Laura, we said, we gotta get this done. They have the grant writers, Eric and I are experienced doing grants, but these grants are incredibly complex and detailed, especially with their BCA analysis of the cost benefit. So this is, part of this is retro, to
Yes.
make sure it's funding for this, and then for the CADX that he's looking for on the BIP program.
No, I just thought
Good.
it needed to be updated, that's all.
Yeah.
And BIP, for those who don't know, we have all these acronyms. BIP is the Bridge Investment Program. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on.
Further good questions?
All set.
All set. Do I have a motion? Motion by Karen, second by Peter. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you. Next item is design and bid phase services for 2022 deck repairs to the Newport Pell and Mount Hope Bridge task order.
Take that one as well.
Yes, sir.
On the Newport Pell Bridge, so we, again, speaking to the grants, as part of the grant efforts, we've actually submitted a project for Pell, and part of the project is a very large one that includes rehab of the bridge deck from where we left off on the last major rehab on the east side of the main spans, basically, and coming across westward all the way to the west of Buckland. But that project, since we don't know the status of the funding on that project and when it will get going, we also have this project in the capital plan. We've been keeping an eye on the bridge deck, and there's numerous repairs needed in the main span of the bridge that need to happen now, some interim repairs. So we did a bridge walk with WSP, who did the last bridge deck job, and basically said, yeah, we need to put out a capital project to get some of these, we need to get caught up on some of these. Our maintenance staff is out there all the time doing repairs of their own, but we just can't keep up with the amount of repairs that are out there. So we're gonna concentrate on the eastbound side, and you put a capital program out to do the eastbound side, which happens to have the most amount of necessary repair areas. The westbound side, we're gonna continue to do in-house and make the repairs ourselves. So what we asked for was a task order to do that. At the same time, we have repairs needed on the Mount Hope Bridge, so for economy of scale, we walked the bridge also with WSP out there and identified areas on Mount Hope Bridge. What this task force will do is basically put out a bid package for internal repairs to the concrete decks of both bridges. And this would do design and carry through bid phase, this task order. So that proposal was $43,726, which we feel is very reasonable to package up a bid package on both bridges. We'd like to recommend moving forward.
Questions?
And that's to start work this fall?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's important to
Yeah.
get it going, sure.
We don't do bridge deck work unless it's an emergency on Mount Hope Bridge, specifically during the summer for traffic reasons. Yeah, we want to get it done this fall. The timing works out great because we'll be just after Labor Day shortly. We'll be able to get out on that bridge.
All set. Do I have a motion to award to WSP? Motion by Peter, second by Darrell. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Next item is replacement parts for 2015 sweeper purchase order.
Yeah. So in maintenance, we had a 2015 Timco sweeper machine. It's built on an international chassis. We purchased this originally brand new. It's been in use for 8 years, and it gets used often. I can tell you that. We go out and sweep the bridges often. We sweep the plaza. And our mechanic this year was responding to basically a need for maintenance on it, and did a thorough analysis of the sweeper, and basically it needs an overhaul of the vacuum and sweeping mechanisms. When we looked at certain pieces and tried to repair it, it can't be repaired anymore. It's worn out. It's considered normal. I mean, you're sweeping up abrasive material all the time, so it wears out the impellers, it wears out the sweeping mechanisms, the sweeping arms take a hit. So we reached out to the only authorized dealer in the region, which is called J.C. Madigan Incorporated. We reached out for a quote to basically replace all of these components as a unit. I mean, all at once to the vacuum and the sweeping mechanisms. And we got a quote for $25,302.50. And if you've looked at the quote, it's quite extensive, but it will bring the sweeper back into basically new operating condition. So we'd like to recommend moving forward with this purchase order so that we can get it all rebuilt.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How much is the new sweeper?
Oof. Frank,
About 500,000.
How much is this sweeper worth? The 2015.
we haven't priced it out on the street, but, outside of the replacement of these mechanisms, the sweeper's in great shape.
I would say it's worth 100,000.
That's it.
Because the new one's about 500,000.
Yeah.
Is this just for the parts? Do we
This is just
install?
the parts, our own mechanic would put it.
That was my question. So this is an
Yeah.
in-house repair? Well,
It's an
that's
in-house
good.
repair,
Yeah, nice.
yeah.
That's gonna be my next
Pretty effective, sure, yeah.
one. Okay, great. So do I have a motion? Motion by Karen, second by Peter. Discussion, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you.
Sure.
Next item is selection of consultants for on-call infrastructure professional services contract for 2022.
See, that one as well?
Discussion.
Discussion, I'm sorry. Right, I apologize.
So we had our on-call contracts that we have right now for engineering. We had an option to renew them again this August, but we decided it would be best to go out for new on-calls and try to increase our consultant pool, if you will. Right now, it's very small what we have available. So in May, we put out a proposal for on-call professional engineering services, and we basically included 6 different disciplines in this proposal, and allowed the consultants to submit on one or up to all of the disciplines. On June 15th, so we gave them basically longer than we normally would. We gave them about 6 weeks to put all of this together, because we realized it was a large proposal. So on June 15th, we received 23 proposals. After review of the proposals, we actually are recommending selection of all 23 consultants. And what I've done here in the backup on the broken down the different disciplines, we ended up with 17 respondents for bridge and structural engineering discipline, 13 for civil and site engineering, 9 for construction support and resident inspection services, 5 for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineering, 5 for architectural services, and 8 for environmental services. So we'll be putting letters together to award to all of these consultants. This is a really good thing. I mean, if you look at the matrix that was developed, we will now be able to, when private projects come up, look and see who we have in that specific discipline available to ask for quotes for, and, you know, go out and award work either based on quotes or based on who we feel is best qualified, depending on the job. So.
Great, good work.
I think this is a really good move. Since I've been involved, I've been encouraging the expansion of our horizons, the consultants that are available to us, and this is a good step. Excellent. Love it.
Good enough for Pete, it's good enough.
Well,
Well, no, you.
yeah. Well, instead of just going to one shop all the
Absolutely.
time, this gives us a great flexibility in what we do. And probably a lot quicker responses in some cases where one consultant may be tied down with a lot of things and then others are more available, so we can test the market on each time. Very good.
It also brings in a lot more local talent to the playing field, where in the past it seems like we haven't had much. So.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Takes us back to number 4, I think.
Okay, so, obviously, the police officers have come in,
So
chief and lieutenant, I guess.
I'll introduce them. I was contacted by the lieutenant and by the chief of the Bristol Police Department. They asked to come in and to present to the board on the matter of cameras on the Mountain Bridge. So I'll let them speak. We have this on for discussion.
Yes,
Sure. Mind if I take a seat?
absolutely not.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
With me is Lieutenant Stephen St. Pierre, and the lieutenant has worked diligently for several years on calls of service to the Bridge and Turnpike Authority with students from Roger Williams University when the matter was researched by the student body. He's also works as a liaison with a lot of social networks, East Bay Community Action, and he got a start early on in police work, in working with substance abuse, working with mental health, and he comes with that social background, social services background to policing, and he's been a huge wealth of knowledge. And he worked with the Patton Foundation and EdCap to garner funding to invest in a pilot program to install flock cameras. I worked early on with Chief Peters from the Portsmouth Police Department. We thought we were in a good place. When Portsmouth decided to partner with us, their council had initially approved of installing the flock cameras. Our goal was to put 2 on the Portsmouth side, 2 on the Bristol side, and to share the information. I don't know what questions that I can answer you, but I think that you probably have all read throughout the state that the flock cameras come with a little bit of controversy attached to them, and I don't want to shy away from that. But I will tell you, I am the only chief that early on had decided to share the location of where the cameras were going to be installed. I am the police chief in the safest community in Rhode Island 2 years in a row. I've been the police chief for 3 years, and I hope to get a hat trick next year and to get a 3rd year in a row. So with that is the connotation that are the cameras needed ultimately to stop crime that's going on in Bristol? No, they're not needed there. So part of the advertisement, as I sent to you last night, was, are the cameras ever advertised for endangered persons, i.e. a person that's contemplating suicide? Silver alert, amber alert, and I was able to reach out to a representative last night, a Craig Lynch, no relation, and he was able to send me some news bulletins where they have been used in silver and amber alerts and have looked at it. The genesis and the goal behind it is when a loved one calls the police department, whether it's the Barrington, the East Providence, the Jamestown Police Department, and they say they have a loved one that is contemplating suicide, and we fear the worst. What that does at that time, that police department can enter that license plate. Say Kevin Lynch has left his home and he's operating his car and his license plate is KL1. You can enter it in on a flock list hot list, which goes immediately into the computer, or you can go through the NCIC database. We would always recommend that they do both. By putting it on the flock hot list, it's immediate. If that car drives by any flock camera, it's going to get flagged and notify that police department, probably within 21 seconds. So it alerts the police to say the car is heading in this direction, whatever way that the camera is going. It does not do any facial recognition. It does not do any voice activation, which has been a concern with the ACLU. When I testified in front of the Bristol Town Council, I put down in our departmental policy that I will not expand the program, even if the technology advances, before I come back and educate the council. I would do the same if you folks ever decided to partner with me. So a couple of other things that we do is the information will never be sold to a third party. It belongs to the Bristol Police Department, and if you decide to partner with us, you would have access to that particular information, and that is it. It's self-purchase after 30 days. There's absolutely no retention of that information, and it goes away. As I stated, I'm willing to disclose the location on our website. We have a transparency section, and I'd be willing to advertise and put all of the links to the flock camera system. And I think that we have, you know, an opportunity to be leaders out there, maybe in the state. I don't know of any other police chief that's come up with this initiative to do this. Most of them are looking to combat crime. My first and foremost concept for this is to find silver alerts, amber alerts, and to certainly identify a suicidal person who may be headed to the Mount Hope Bridge. We've all heard, I'm aware of the legislation that's passed. I am no engineer, but there's always conversations when it comes about the Mount Hope Bridge that it's 92 years old, I believe. 93. And, you know, to add extra fencing or netting, obviously an engineer would have to weigh out whether or not that could ever come to fruition due to the age of the bridge, the weight of it. We've always heard that that could be a quandary for the future. This is not a silver lining. This is a tool in concert with some of the things that you're working on with technology. We had a meeting here about a year and a half ago, and we talked about some technology that you folks are bringing on board that we're in complete support of. And this is just another tool and another layer to help us to save a life, you know, and that's completely the genesis behind it. I have just a little bit of data that the lieutenant prepared last night. I'll maybe just give you, you're wondering how many calls of service does the Bristol Police Department have going out there. And so a BOLO is a be on the lookout for. So we would routinely give out that call. Your loved one calls the police, they put your license plate out, police dispatcher alerts all the cars, calling all cars, be on the lookout for KL1. Family member has reported that they're stressed, they're in a volatile situation, and they may be headed to the bridge. So that information goes out into an NCIC computer, but the dispatchers routinely will broadcast that out to the police cars. Numbers from 2013 to May of 2022, we average about 25 to 30 BOLOs per year. Over the 9 years, we intercept over about 75% of those now in town, and the rest are intercepted out of town. We responded to 1,000 calls to the bridge over that time frame, and over 200 being for suicide or mental health. And like I said, BOLO calls, as the lieutenant indicated in his research, are about 30 to 40% of the time. So this is just an opportunity to have some additional, I guess, eyes out there. I wouldn't say ears because we're not interested in the auditory side of it. But we're very transparent about what we're trying to do. And I don't want to shy away from the fact that it probably will be controversial. The ACLU has reached out to every town council. One of the things that I did was I gave the town council all of the letters that I was aware of that they had issued. One was to the Cranston City Council. Here are all of the issues. These are the issues that the ACLU has with that. I have addressed each and every one of them. I've been transparent about them. And again, if it was illegal, the ACLU would have already gone to court. Stephen Brown would have gone to court. and he would have tried to stop the Cranston Police Department, the Warwick Police Department, the Providence Police Department. They're legal. People just assume that it's a overreach by government to be looking at each and every license plate. They're concerned about data being sold. They want to know where, how it's being purged, how it's being stored. All of those things will be properly transparent and outlined out there. And I would ask, for you folks to consider this. I know it's a controversial issue for a board of directors. I know that you are not an arm or an extension of the Bristol Police Department. However, we all have a role in trying to save a potential life from the people that go on the bridge. In the cadre of services that Flock offers, I can check off the boxes. Do I want to look for people that committed a bank robbery? Do I want to get a stolen automobile? Do I want to get a felon who's been associated with a car? If you folks do not want to be involved in the criminal law aspect of the Flock cameras, I would ask you that you give me permission to put 2 on the bridge, and we will only, for the bridge and turnpike cameras, we will only check off endangered persons, a missing person who's suicidal, a silver alert, an elderly person who's gotten onto our roads, gotten lost, and their family is looking for them, and an amber alert, someone that's abducted a child and they may be traveling over the bridge. So if you're cautious and you're concerned about partnering with police and the negative connotations that have existed post-George Floyd incident, right? Nobody wants to defund the police movement that went out. Everyone wants to shy away from police. Years ago, every politician running for office ran and embraced a police officer, and we're pro-police, where we have seen, that to go completely in a negative way. I'm not trying to make this a political thing. I do not have a personal agenda. I am an employee of the Bristol Police Department. I've been there for 3 years. And I believe that my heart is in the right place with doing this. My goal is not to catch criminals. My primary goal is to save lives. Unlike you all folks, I've taken an oath of office to prevent crime. So the cameras that are on the Bristol side, if someone robs a bank or harms a child and they travel over that bridge and their plate is associated with criminal activity, yes, I do want to make an apprehension of that person. I don't want to not tell you that I do plan on checking off those boxes on the cameras that are installed in the town of Bristol. But for you folks, if I was a board member, I serve on a lot of boards and commissions. If you're concerned about being an agent of the Bristol Police Department, I would say I don't know anybody that could find fault with trying to save a life of a person that's endangered, an elderly person, or someone that's snatched a child. I'll entertain any questions. Lieutenant, is there anything that you feel as though that
You've been extremely thorough.
Okay. So I know I can get long-winded when I'm passionate about things, but I will certainly entertain any question that a board member had and do my best to try to answer it.
Questions?
Question.
Yes.
Do you know how accurate the camera reads are for license plate recognition? I'm only asking because obviously we have cameras here for a different reason, and I find that the accuracy, at least for Rhode Island and New England states, because of different plate types, aren't necessarily there. So I'm just curious how that
Yeah,
works.
I'm told it's 1000% spot on. There's no misguiding it. It zooms right in, and it's only looking primarily at that license plate. However, there's a verification process that we have to have, which is in our departmental policy that I can forward over to you. So we're not just going to rely on the camera. We're going to run the registration plate to make sure that that information is accurate. A police officer is going to respond. So if your plate was KC1 and you're driving a black Hyundai, we're going to look for a KC1, license plate, and we're going to look for a black Hyundai. So we're going to verify that information. There's also going to be a recognition from a police officer. And so there's several steps before, the Flock camera doesn't stop the car. A uniformed police officer activates his lights, he verifies the information, he gets out, and he would engage that particular person.
Chief, you mentioned that these cameras are legal. How is that defined? What makes them legal versus, has it been tested in court? Or
It has. There's a case that's called Massachusetts versus McCarthy, and it had to do with the Massachusetts State Police that had the cameras installed up going into Cape Cod. They were tracking drug dealers, and they were tracking them, going and forward over the bridge, and seeing how many times that they were moving narcotics in and out of the Cape Cod. They said that the cameras violated their Fourth Amendment. They made an illegal seizure. A police officer can only stop a motor vehicle if, one, if he has reasonable suspicion, or two, probable cause. And they've stated that there was no reasonable suspicion or no probable cause. And the Massachusetts High Court ruled that the cameras did not violate anybody's Fourth Amendment. The government was not overutilizing its ability. Believe it or not, the registration plate, when you go register your car, at the end of your term, you go turn those plates back into the DMV. There's also cases in the Rhode Island Supreme Court where there was a bolo in the Warwick Police Department that came out for a drunk driver. You're driving down the road, you see this guy, he's all over the road. Our first connotation is, oh my God, look at this guy, he must be drunk, he's driving this car. You do the Good Samaritan thing, you call the phone, you call 911, you call in that black Hyundai that Catherine's driving, KC1, and a police officer just rolled up on the car. Hey, I see that car that concerned citizen called in. That person's lawyer said, you had no reasonable suspicion. You didn't view that car swerving all over the road. Well, the Good Samaritan called it in, and I checked the registration plate, and long and behold, the operator of that car had a suspended license. You had no right to dig into that information, keep going down into that. There was no proof that that car, that operator was drunk. They were, ultimately. The Good Samaritan was correct. They argued in the Rhode Island, went all the way up to the Rhode Island Supreme Court. The Rhode Island Supreme Court has deemed that registration plate, government can take a look at that plate. That plate belongs to the Department of Motor Vehicles. It does not belong to Peter Generis or Chief Kevin Lynch. So it is not an intrusive thing according to the court. They have been true and tried throughout the country, and not one time have they lost a case where someone said that camera system is illegal. And I would certainly, would recommend if I served on a board that your legal counsel would look into that case.
There's no expectation of privacy on a public road.
Yep.
I drive down, if I'm on a public street, I'm driving down the road, I don't have an expectation that that's a private activity. That's not me in my home, that's not me in my backyard, that's me.
Yes. So, I mean, it's no different than the cameras that we have in town or you folks have on the bridge. DOT has everywhere, when you hear those traffic reports, those are all DOT cameras. There's no expectation of privacy. Department of Transportation monitors. I don't know if you've ever been to their hub and looked at their operation, and they check the flow of traffic each and every day. And I get the fact, I'm very familiar. The Vice President of the Police Chiefs Association. I'll be the president in January. We're very cognizant of the fact that talk radio has jumped on it. I like I said, I want to be transparent. You may get a call to be on the Matt Allen show, who's going to speak for the board, and what the partnership is, and what it is, and what it isn't. And the big thing is that people think the Big Brother is out there taking another step. And I think that unlike my peers, I'm not afraid to tell people where the cameras are. I promise not to sell the information. I promise to, if there's ever change, technology changes every day. They're not used for speed. The information will never be sold. We're not interested in that business because we know information is key, for people. As I explained to your director, myself and the lieutenant, our hearts are in the right place with this. We really want to do something positive, and I'm just trying to do everything that I can in my ability. I made a pledge to the people that are working on suicide prevention to do everything that I could possibly to aid in this challenging situation. Do I think it's going to stop or solve each and every one of them? No, but if we put it up in a one-year pilot and I save one life, I'm going to go home that night and certainly take a victory lap. So.
Chief, do you have these cameras installed elsewhere in Bristol right now?
No, we do not. There's a pilot program with EBCAP, East Bay Community Action Program, and Patton Foundation. Their son was in the military and ultimately committed suicide. And they have funded this for a one-year pilot. So there would be, the goal always was 2 on our side of the bridge, 2 with Portsmouth. And I don't know why they reversed course. I have learned informally, which, I don't want to speak on informal reasons. I heard it was associated with politics and future candidacy. I don't have any confirmation of that. That's the only informal conversations that are floating around in the community. But personally, I don't even know I couldn't name one person on the town council, to be honest with you. And I respect the fact that they're elected officials and they have the right to change their vote, and that's what they did. So the goal is obviously, to work in concert with Chief Peters and his people to do that. So the next idea would be to go as close as we could to the town line of your property and to put them there and to work on that information. The good thing is, sometimes follow-up interviews with people is we know that sometimes people just drive up and take that fatal leap. Other times, they're contemplating it, and they do travel over the bridge once, twice, 3 times. I'm sure your own data shows whether or not the folks, travel over the bridge a couple of times, anticipating that fatal step. And so that's where the cameras, might pick it up.
Chief, I have a question. When these cameras were approved by your town council, they were earmarked for a different place in town, yeah?
Yes.
Then-
Well, the goal, obviously, I replayed my testimony. I received it from the town clerk, I think, last Friday. I watched it over the weekend. And I have been very transparent and forwarded them the articles from Portsmouth when they did decide. They are very aware that I have now asked to partner, with you folks. So there certainly will be, a re-education of everybody on the council. But what I did say was I would go back in front of the council if the technology advanced. There's a big concern from the ACLU that these cameras are going to be like facial recognition. They're going to record conversations, and they're going to be used for speeding, right? You can drive, you could go 150 miles an hour by this flock camera, and there's nothing that's going to happen. It does not have the capability of doing that, right? So, and nor are we ever interested, nor am I interested in speed cameras.
And you made the council aware of it.
They're aware of that. Yeah, they're aware. I've had email exchange with the clerk. I've had email exchange with Nathan Coloro, the council chairperson.
To get back to the chair's question, I think the chair was asking where in town they're located. Locating them on the Mount Hope Bridge obviously was not the first choice, correct? You wanted them placed in Portsmouth away from the bridge.
Yeah, just to give it a little lead time, because you got that 21 seconds, you know what I mean? So if I had them move further back, than they go, that I absorb that 21 seconds, of that lead time, with that pings, dispatch, and dispatch. The good thing about the Bristol thing is that the community is very conditioned to respond to the bridge. They have that sense. And when someone stops that car and they're walking on that bridge, boy, our phone does go off. But the further back that they go, for me, is a better opportunity.
No, and forgive me, I'm not explaining myself.
Yeah.
When these were initially approved by the town council, were they supposed to be placed before the bridge, or were they supposed to be placed on making this?
Yeah, I understand.
At an intersection that's dangerous or something?
Yeah, I would be more than glad to provide you my testimony to the council.
No, that's, I'm just.
But I would say that I sought permission to purchase the flock cameras. I did not seek permission on the location.
Okay.
So the permission from the council was to adopt the program.
I see.
I don't think the council was overly interested in exact location. I told them that it was yet to be determined because I was working with DOT. I also didn't want to install them next to a neighbor's house. I don't want someone looking out their kitchen window and seeing a camera, flock camera, outside of their home. So I said I was going to walk the area with a flock representative, and I was going to find the location that worked for the community, worked for the camera, and worked for us. But yet, I've never said to them, even the location in Bristol, where it's going to be, because I've been kind of fluid about where it would work. And I actually have a conference call with them at 11 o'clock, and that was going to be, some of the ideas to get out and walk the street with them and determine where that was going to be.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Further questions? Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I
I appreciate the opportunity.
appreciate
I appreciate the partnership on anything or any programs that you have now and in the future.
Well, you and the lieutenant did a great job with the presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, be well, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Did you want the chief and the
Oh,
lieutenant to stay while you cover?
Mind if I take a seat?
Do you need the chief here?
I don't need the chief, but
Okay.
you may want to respond to what I have to say.
Okay.
Then, you have a second, chief?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
take a seat.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir.
My name is John McDade. I'm a resident of Portsmouth, and I want to urge the board to thoughtfully consider not just the items that the chief has raised about saving lives, but also whether the Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority wants to be involved in law enforcement as described by the chief. You are going to be involved in providing this information to NCIC. It is not just driving down the street as a public road. It is storing all of the information about these vehicles, not just license plates, but descriptions of the back of the car, identifying features. This is all described in the chief's own testimony to Bristol. And it is kept for 30 days. Now, there's a difference between a police officer sitting by the side of the road and anything that they observe is fair game. That's absolutely true. But storing information in a computer system, which allows it to be cross-referenced, checked against federal databases for 30 days, this is a different thing. And I urge the authority to consider this carefully before making a decision about whether you want to be involved in this. And I want to speak to a point of personal privilege. As the person who organized the objections in Portsmouth, I take serious issue with the chief characterizing this as a political and someone running for office. This was a people-led, people-organized opposition to the cameras. We showed up at the town council. We sent them emails. We sent them letters. The council listened to the people of Portsmouth and made a decision not to proceed. The police chief in Portsmouth immediately backed off. What I am not seeing from Bristol is a similar respect for the decision that was made by the people of Portsmouth and our town council. The people of Portsmouth objected to this and the council responded. I would strongly urge the board to consider carefully whether or not it's in the state's best interest to override the will of the people of a municipality. And as you know, the Mount Hope Bridge is not big. It takes roughly 60 seconds to drive to the middle of the bridge. I timed it. You know that as well as I do. You know how many feet of concrete you have to put on it. 21 seconds plus at least 10 to 15 seconds to call a radio car means that you have at most a couple of 1,000-yard radius where a police car would have to be in order to stop someone from jumping. That's just physics. You cannot go faster than a certain speed and get there. So what they are saying is moonshine, to put it politely. And that was how it was sold to the council in Bristol, and that was how they tried to sell it to the council in Portsmouth. And then when the people of Portsmouth objected, quite reasonably, the council reevaluated. And I would strongly urge this board to think long and hard about whether or not you want to put something in a municipality or adjacent to a municipality where people like me drive over that bridge to go to work and have our license plates stored, searched, cross-referenced, and sent to federal agencies for 30 days. I welcome your questions.
Questions?
Thank you.
I have a question,
Yes.
sorry, and I'm not sure which one it would be addressed to. Is there any legislation or pending legislation that would protect the data or prohibit it from being sent to other police?
I'll let the chief respond, but there was a bill that was introduced in the last session of the General Assembly. It didn't go anywhere, but I have urged our legislative delegation to pursue that again.
And if there was legislation, say these cameras went up and there was legislation that prevented the data from being shared outside of Bristol Police Department, is that something that Portsmouth residents would be in support of?
Obviously, we would have to look at the legislation.
Mr. Chairman, if I could comment?
Absolutely,
One thing I was remiss in my testimony.
Yes, sir.
And I'm also the only chief that's not going to have an open. There's two portals that you have. You can share the information, or you can keep the information confidential. I did plan on not sharing the information, being the only community not to share the information with the other police departments. If a violent criminal traveled over the bridge and a chief made a written request to me with the case report number, I would personally review that information, and I would make a decision if it was in the best interest of the state to take a heinous criminal off the road if he traveled or track that particular person. I would do what was in the right and just thing to do. But to have an open portal, I did plan on closing that and not sharing that information with the other communities. And as I stated when I came here today, the only thing I would say that if people are troubled or concerned about my good friend's Big Brother watching, I would ask that the Bridge and Turnpike Authority turn it on with the three things: an endangered person, an amber alert, and a silver alert. And I don't think anybody can find fault with that. We never will sell that data. I'm not sharing that data with any other community. And as I stated before, my heart is in the right place. I am not trying to infringe or violate anyone's privacy rights. While I understand and respect the concern, I think I've taken more safeguards than any other police chief or any other community in the state because of the genesis of behind what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Chief.
Let me just respond to that. While I respect the chief's instincts and his consistent reiteration of those points, I come from a background in IT. I spent 20 years working for a Fortune 500 company supervising IT projects. I know what it means to secure data. This data is not actually controlled by the Bristol Police Department. This data goes to the cloud and it is hosted in Amazon Web Services. Now, the Bristol Police Department doesn't have the encryption keys, but somebody does, and it's Flock. And if you don't control the encryption keys, you don't control the data. That's the reality.
Further response? Questions?
He's correct, that data does get stored up into the cloud, and Flock does not access that particular information according to the Bristol Police Department. It has a self-storage. Again, as the legal counsel has stated, there's no expectation of privacy on a registration plate. They belong to the state of Rhode Island, the Department of Motor Vehicles. Each and every one of us fasten that plate on. It's just like a license to operate in the state of Rhode Island. It's not a guarantee, it's a privilege. Just like registration to a car, it's a privilege. You have to turn it back over to the state. We're only borrowing it. Anybody can walk out in the parking lot, write down license plates, put them down in the notepad, and walk away. Some states allow you for a fee to run the registration plate with anybody. You know, you can go to the DMV for a fee, and you can run a registration plate if you're tracking someone. Well, a male sees a female and he wants to go acquire who she is. Some states allow you to go and to pay a fee and to run that registration data. So there's not a lot of expectation of privacy when it comes to a registration.
Thank you, Chief. You all set, sir?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you. Further comments or discussion? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you,
Lieutenant.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Capital project, status report.
Sure, I'll take that one. I'll run through these fairly quickly. And so, Pier 5W ramp removal and replacement project is still ongoing. There's work happening in the background, even though there's nobody on the bridge. We're doing shop drawings and working through some painting painting issues as far as materials and availability. This is a supply chain issue with paint that has affected the entire country, as a matter of fact, so we're working through trying to get the correct paint for America. Conceptual design for phase 2 of AET will be submitted shortly. We'll be making some final revisions to the draft submission on that. That's basically the 30% design for the AET out in front of the building. At the same time, I am scoping the final design process for this project. As we say here, basically that's in discussion with WSP right now. Miscellaneous steel repairs to Mount Hope. We're working through some shop drawings on that with Piasecki, who is the contractor, and then they'll be out this fall making the steel repairs that came up during the interim report on that bridge. On Mount Hope, speaking of the camera system that we have on Mount Hope, we have it live. We realized that some of the views, now that we've got the cameras up and live, needed to be adjusted. We're actually we're in the process of purchasing 2 more cameras and adding 2 more cameras so that we can adjust some of the camera views on that bridge. Underwater bridge inspection for Newport Pell is complete. We have a draft report that we're reviewing before we finalize it. Score rating for Jamestown, I'm sorry.
Remember we had talked about the images on the Newport Bridge? I'd just like to make them available to the board at some point.
So actually, it's interesting you bring that up. So we had an email yesterday from Collins, the engineering company that did the inspection. They actually proposed presenting it to us. So I'd like to have them come in, not necessarily to present the full images to the board, but I could have them come in and present it to us internally, and then we could have some images available to share at a future board meeting, just to show you examples.
I think the board members would really enjoy seeing those images. They're remarkable to actually see what's underwater 100 and some feet down.
Yeah. So I was going to respond to them today and ask that they do come in and present to us, and then we can gather some of the images. And then the load rating on Jamestown Bridge, this one's been open for a while. As I stated, there was some shear cracks that came up in the load rating that have been in the bridge for years. As a matter of fact, it's very normal for that type of a concrete structure that was designed 30 years ago to develop shear cracks. It doesn't mean that the bridge is unsafe or that it can't carry loads, but it presents a serviceability issue. And the new load rating guidelines from Federal Highway do not allow shear cracks to exist in a structure. We're not the only bridge that has this issue. There's other bridges of similar age that have had this issue. Federal Highway has no provision to address these shear cracks yet. So we're in discussions with Federal Highway to basically come up with some sort of a plan to monitor the cracks and allow us to have a sufficient load rating on the bridge. Right now we do, where there is no provision to allow that because of the serviceability issue. So we've asked a team who did the load rating to actually come up with a proposal to assist us with a crack monitoring program that we can then present to Federal Highway and satisfy their concerns with the bridge. And it would be basically a mitigation method. So we'll be monitoring the cracks at some future point.
Eric, before you continue, many of us remember the old Jamestown Bridge, the Jamestown Verrazano Bridge. The current one will turn 30, I believe, in September.
Yeah.
This year, next month, October. Thank you, Peter.
The capital improvement plan, we'll be briefing the board on that at a future board meeting. I actually am planning to share with Peter Generos and probably have some discussions, as he was the engineer here before, and he would like to have some input on it as well. So we'll be discussing, and then we'll be briefing the board on the capital improvement plan. That's it.
Thank you, Warren. Next item is the financial.
I'll also try and keep it brief. Engineer Armstrong will provide the variance analysis. For the sake of public, I'll just go through some very high level numbers. Total revenue was higher than budget by $4.6 million. Total revenue was higher by $4 million, and gas tax was higher by $570,000. With respect to our operating expenses, this is consistent with prior months. Our personnel, contractual, insurance, repairs and maintenance, bridge inspections were all lower than budget, while our utilities and other other supplies and expenses were higher than budget. The other supplies and expenses, that's a result of the higher revenue that we had budgeted. So, and also the bill by mail costs associated with that. So even though that's higher, that's not a bad thing because our revenue is higher, and that's why those costs were. One other thing I'd just like to point out, we did go through our insurance renewals on August 1st. In total, it would be about $50,000 of savings in the budget from those negotiations. And additionally, this week we found out that we will be getting a $39,000 credit. It's called a shared earnings credit from Beacon Mutual, and that's due to the exceptional loss ratio, or very low loss ratio. And I think part of that goes to all the work that Eric and Steve have been doing with the maintenance team, because that's where the majority of our losses come in. In total, that's roughly $90,000 of savings for insurance. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Questions? Thank you. Next item is the executive director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So every month I provide you with the Newport Bridge transactions, the grid that shows the how we are measuring up against other years. And I always hope that I will be able to tell you that we are back at 2019 levels. We are not quite there, as you can see. We're not in 2019 still. We had more traffic in 2019 than we do today in 2022. We have an 85% saturation rate for E-ZPass during the week. So our motorists during the week, as you're looking at the traffic coming through the Pell Bridge Plaza right now, you can assume that 85%, maybe a little bit more than that, because we've had a real run on new accounts, new E-ZPass accounts. So it's somewhere in the range of 85% of the vehicles that you see going through have valid E-ZPass accounts, and their tolls are posting to their accounts. The other 15% or some part of that is coming through with nothing at all, either an E-ZPass account that's not valid because it's not being kept up to date, it's not properly backed by a credit card or other means, or the transponder is not in the vehicle, all those reasons. And then there's people that have no E-ZPass at all, and they're getting billed by mail. So our saturation rate during the week is 85%, but on the weekends that drops off because we get the visitors who may not have an E-ZPass at all and maybe visit Newport only once or twice a year. So so that rate changes on the weekends. The real difference, we think, between that 2019 yellow-orange line and the blue line for 2022, the real difference is that commuter traffic has not come back 100%. So tourism is back. The beaches, we've had a wonderful summer, knock on wood. We've had, so we've really had, tourism is back pretty much full force. What we suspect, what our statistics seem to bear out, is that the commuter traffic is not back. Not every workplace has come back, and that's the difference. So so we'll continue on that. The also falling under the heading of traffic, the all electronic tolling has been tremendously successful for us. So successful that when Providence Business News put out a notice that they were looking for projects that fell under the heading of innovative projects, companies in the government sector who had done something innovative, and I said, well, that's us. That's what we did. And it was pretty remarkable when we did it. Remarkable that we've gone all electronic. Before that, we had done a pilot program where we did it for 1 month, only going eastbound. But then the really remarkable thing was that when we had many of our collectors leaving the workplace because of COVID, we condensed our three shifts into 2, and we went all electronic from 11 p.m. at night till 7 a.m. all of the time. But the special part of that, other toll authorities did the same thing. So that doesn't make us unique. What made us unique is that we did it here with our staff, and we did it guided by our consultants who are in Texas, who are in other states, and they literally, yesterday the Providence Business News had someone interview us about it, and I said I likened it to a surgeon, a surgeon operating remotely with someone else acting as the surgeon's hands. And that's really what we did, and it was a pretty amazing thing that we were able to automate the outside lanes 1 and 12 and go all electronic from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. to address this fact that we didn't have enough collectors at the time, and that really got us through COVID. So PBN agreed with us and said, you're the winner of the award for the government sector. So there will be, in September, there will be an article on it, and there will be recognition for that, which it seemed to me the award fit us like a glove, so we couldn't resist, and sure enough, they agreed.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Federal funding requests, I wish I had great news there. As you know, last year we submitted for for RAISE last year. We submitted the Mountain Hope Bridge for RAISE. We were told we came within a hair. This year we modified only the parts that they thought needed to be fortified. When I say they, I mean USDOT, Federal Highway. We fortified that. It appeared, we haven't been officially notified, but it appears that we did not get the RAISE grant for the Mountain Hope Bridge. We are very concerned. The Mountain Hope Bridge is 93 years old. It's, we've made this speech many times that the cables need attention. It's urgent. And so we have other irons in the fire to get that money if in fact we did not succeed in this round of RAISE. We submitted, so RAISE, Mega Infra. Mega is the Pell Bridge project, a bundled project of deck repair, a dehumidification system for this bridge as well. Work on the towers, on the suspender ropes, painting, elevators. It's a comprehensive, that's under the MEGA program. We've submitted that. The infra program, we've submitted Mountain Hope dehumidification again. We should hear on at least one of those programs or two, MEGA and infra, I'm hoping in the coming weeks. And then there is, so RAISE, Mega Infra BIP, Bridge Investment Program, that was just due a couple of weeks ago. We got some encouraging news from the government. We hit the magic button on a Friday. Victory Day was Monday. The U.S. government said to us, we'd like some answers to questions, and we'd like them by noon on Monday. Several of us thought we were on vacation, but we were not, and we stepped up, and all of the answers were provided by the time required to the U.S. government. The fact that they were asking those questions, and they were very detailed questions connected to particular pages of our submission, is very encouraging. But I've told you, I've sat here, you're going to start to say, you're making us promises, and unfortunately, so far we have not come out successful, but we will not give up, and we are confident that one of these programs will provide us with the money we need. The Bridge Investment Program, we think, is tailor-made for our programs. There's two sections to it. There's the large bridge program and the smaller bridge program. The large bridge program, we've already submitted. The Mountain Hope Bridge dehumidification will be submitted by September 9th.
And that will include deck rehabilitation.
Right. So
it'll be a bundled package from home for that one.
Right. So, and there may be other opportunities, and we won't give up until that money comes to us. And, with the traffic as it is, without the commuter traffic being 100%, we clearly need that money. But, and it's bad, we're discouraged because we've worked very hard. We've had great submissions, we think. It is discouraging. On the other hand, we are the new applicant in the federal funding. Some of the other entities here in Rhode Island, quasi-public and public sector agencies that they've submitted many times. We have not accepted federal money in a very long time. So in I would say more than 15 years. So we are the new kid on the block, but I think we're making great submissions, and we will succeed eventually. The only other thing I wanted to mention is that we, as you know, the board voted to have a Turnpike and Bridge Authority post from the Rhode Island State Police. That post got up and running on July 1st. There is a new officer in charge in the Whitford Barracks. He stays in close contact with us. That's Lieutenant LaValle. You may have seen more of a presence of the state police in the area. They have also been already very helpful in tracking down some of what I call our frequent flyers, and I'm looking at Katie, Director of Tolling, because there are motorists out there who have very high numbers of violations, and the state police has begun ramped up efforts to help us to find those violators who need to be handed summonses to appear in court for their multiple violations. So that's going very well.
And just to add on to that, these people that the state police are trying to find have already been summoned to court in the past. They have DMV holds, non-renewals on them already. So this is kind of our last resort of trying to get them to stop what they're doing.
Okay. The next board meeting is scheduled, it's officially scheduled for Wednesday, September 21st. But we will send out an email confirming that we are thinking that that meeting would take place on Friday, September 23rd. And that's because Katie and I will be heading to the annual meeting of the International Bridge and Turnpike Association in Austin, Texas, and coming back very late the night before Wednesday, the 21st. So we may push that meeting out 2 days, and we will confirm with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions, discussion? Hearing none. Motion to adjourn. So moved. Thank you, everyone.